Cool. Okay, thanks for coming. Today I'm going to talk about Oxford and Cambridge, and specifically how to apply to Oxford and Cambridge and to make an application more competitive. I'm Dan Loftus. I actually studied at Cambridge. I did German and Portuguese at Churchill College. And once I graduated last summer, I started working in the admissions office at Churchill College, meaning any applications that came to Churchill College were processed by me and my colleague. I organised the interviews, read loads of personal statements, worked closely with the admissions tutors. Those are the people who made decisions about who and who did not get a place. Like I say, organised the interviews, sat in interviews, organised decision meetings, and really got a very good idea about what goes into a good application. What someone needs to do if they want to be successful when applying to Oxford or Cambridge. And the first thing I want to say is that, you know, it is difficult. It's very competitive. Oxford and Cambridge receive a lot of applicants per place, around 5 to 1. So for every place they get 5 applicants, which isn't, the numbers alone aren't that impressive, but when you think of the quality of those 5 candidates, they all tend to be very high. So for each place there's 5 very good, strong candidates, and it's very difficult to choose between them. And sometimes, well, every year, very good applicants, very good students who would do well at Cambridge and at Oxford get turned away just because the competition is so tough that, you know, there's limited places. So a lot of the time I hear, right, since I was 4 years old I've wanted to go to Cambridge. Since, you know, I saw Oxford on telly, I've decided that's my only goal in life. And I always sort of go, ooh, please don't, because go for it, do your best, and if you get in, great, but if you don't, then it's not the end of the world. There's plenty of good at the universities in the world and in the UK, and a lot of people think that if you go to Oxford and Cambridge, you've got the key to do whatever you want afterwards, and that's not the case. At Oxford and Cambridge, the students are good because we choose good students. And if you are ambitious, hardworking, intelligent, you know, you've got that drive, if you go to Oxford and Cambridge, or if you don't, you will still be successful. So that's the important thing. But there's various reasons why you might want to go to Oxford and Cambridge, and I'm going to talk about those now. First of all, I will talk about some things that sort of are unique about Oxford and Cambridge, and then I'll go on to the admissions process. So, how are Oxford and Cambridge different? The first reason I want to talk about is the college system, and this is one of the first things applicants have to deal with, because you have to apply to a college, and it's often the most confusing thing, and people don't always understand the college system, don't always know which college is best, etc. The colleges are basically your home while you're studying at the university. Cambridge has got 31 colleges, Oxford's got 38. And while you're studying there, you are a member of a college. You can't be at the university without being at a college. And it's where you sleep, you eat, you have your friends, you socialise, you relax, etc. The courses at both these universities are run centrally. That means that if you do maths at Cambridge, for example, you are doing, it doesn't matter which college you go to, you all do the same course. And you will graduate with a degree from the University of Cambridge. I did German and Portuguese, like I said. there was only me who did German and Portuguese at Churchill College. There was other linguists, they did French, Italian, whatever. So when I went to Portuguese class, I went with people from other colleges. Everyone throughout the university, from all the colleges, went to the same Portuguese class. We were in it together. We do the same degree. You have the same control. The best way of thinking about the college system, it's a bit childish, but it gets the message across. It's kind of like Harry Potter. So Harry Potter's part of Gryffindor. He eats on the Gryffindor table, he sleeps in the Gryffindor tower, he plays Quidditch for Gryffindor, he has friends in Gryffindor, etc. But he goes to lessons with Slytherin, Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw all together. Okay. It's a good analogy, everyone knows Harry Potter, so it's great. A lot of people wonder, well, which college to choose then when you apply? Well, you've got two options. You can pick a college, or you can apply open. If you apply open, you don't specify which college you want to go to, and a computer allocates you to a college before the admissions round starts. There's no advantages or disadvantages of that. You won't be looked on approvingly because you've applied open. Nor will colleges think, well, you didn't apply to our college directly, so we don't want you. It's completely neutral. In fact, most colleges won't know. But if you do want to pick a college on where you want to live. Maybe one college has got nice architecture. Another college has got great sports facilities on site. Other colleges, have, one's got a deer park, one's got, they've all got really good gyms, which one's the best, stuff like that, as trivial as that. I mean, the decision in the end is not that important because about 20 to 30% of people who get a place at Oxford and Cambridge get a place at a college they didn't apply to. This is because Cambridge has got the pooling system, which I'll go and talk about later, and Oxford's got a similar system. Basically, it means there's a lot of communication between the colleges, and it effectively means that if loads of people apply to one college, if there's a lot of good candidates just applying to that one college, they can be distributed evenly among the colleges, so the best candidates always get chosen. But I'll go into that in a bit more detail later. So what is the benefits of having a college system? Well, instead of being 1 in 17,000 people who go to Cambridge University, for example, you are one of maybe 200 to 600 people in a college environment. Much closer community, much easier to make friends. You've got subsidised accommodation for the first 3 years at Cambridge, and at Oxford it's for the first year. They guarantee for the first year, but in practice they normally have accommodation for all 3 years at Oxford as well. It's just legally they don't want to bind themselves to that. Subsidised accommodation, the colleges own their own land, so the rent tends to be cheaper. Got excellent facilities on site. At Oxford and Cambridge, if you get a place, it's really funny because people kind of forget. They think the hardest part is getting an offer, and once you've got an offer at Cambridge or Oxford, the hard work is done. Oh yeah, good luck with that. Because once you start Cambridge, then the hard work begins. You do a lot of work, a lot of supervisions, a lot of contact time, a lot of essays to write. And it's really helpful to have great facilities on college site. That means that when you're in the library, if you want to take an hour break, you can go to the gym, you can go and play frisbee with your mates, practice music or whatever, go to the bar for a drink. It doesn't mean that if you want to go to the gym, you have to take a huge chunk out of your day, which you should be using to work. Facilities at Churchill College, I'm not trying to sell Churchill College, it's just my college, so I know it like the back of my hand. If you do choose to apply to Churchill, great, it's a good college, but the other colleges are great too. But at Churchill College, for example, we've got on-site, so 1 minute walk away from, where I used to sleep every night. Rugby pitch, football pitch, 2 5-a-side football pitches, a cricket pitch, 7 tennis courts, 4 squash courts, netball court, basketball hoop, full-size gym, music centre, bar, 2 libraries, an auditorium that sort of doubled up as a cinema, table tennis, lacrosse, volleyball, and other things. So a lot of things going on. It's a lot of fun, and it is important for students there, at least, to have that balance between work, because you've got such a high, huge workload, and to have the social facilities there, the sporting facilities, so you can do other activities. That's Churchill College, yeah, blah blah. Cool. The second way in which Oxford and Cambridge are different from other universities is the academic support. There's huge academic support at Cambridge, and we have a teaching system at both Oxford and Cambridge which is really unparalleled in terms of the contact time, individual teaching time, and these are the supervisions, what we call them at Cambridge, and tutorials at Oxford. Supervisions and tutorials are 1-on-1, 2-on-1 or 3-on-1 lessons with a leading academic. You typically get a supervision every fortnight for every paper you're doing. So I'd have 2 or 3 supervisions a week. The good thing about supervisions is being in such a small group means you can really focus on what you want to study. I mean, even if you're studying something like history, yeah, you're going to be studying history, but you can really decide what parts of history you want to study. And even if you're doing the, I don't know, medieval paper, you can focus in on, do you want to do about the politics? Do you want to do about a certain king or a certain war or something like that? Because you're not in a group of 30 where, the interests of all 30 have to be met. You're in a group of 1 or 2 and you can really just focus in on what you want to do. The other benefit is that you get a lot of feedback on your work. A typical supervision will involve handing in work beforehand, whether it be an essay for the outside subjects, or some science questions, or a lab write-up for science subjects. So for example, say you're a physicist, you're doing natural sciences, and you've got a physics supervision. You might have been given 25 questions to complete beforehand. The first 15, you do easy, great, done, sorted. The next 5 are tricky. You just about scrape together some sort of cohesive answer, and that will do. The next 5, insanely difficult, you're really struggling. You put some thoughts on paper, but you don't come anywhere close to an answer because you're like, I'm confused. Goes to the supervision. The first 15 questions you got right, we're not even going to mention these because you know that already. The next 5 questions you struggled with, we're going to, talk about that. Why did you struggle? How could you have answered this a bit better? Was there anything you missed out? And then the next 5 that you weren't able to answer, you work through together. So effectively, you're focusing in on your weaknesses, which sounds daunting, but it's the best way to learn. You don't have to do the things that you already know. That's done, that's sorted, let's focus on how you can improve, how you can learn more. And it's safe to say, because of that, I learned so much more in supervisions than I thought possible. Another thing to mention here is that Oxford and Cambridge have got huge traditions. Cambridge is 800 and something years old, and Oxford is even older. Over that time, they've developed the best facilities, some of the best facilities in the world for research. and people from all around the world, experts in their field, people really at the forefront of their subject, come to Oxford and Cambridge to do their research. And it is these people who supervise. Do you know, not only are you being supervised, like up close small group learning, but it's also with people who have written countless books on the subject you're talking about, who have got maybe 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years experience in that field. So in terms of undergraduate teaching, Oxford and Cambridge are really the best in the world. Harvard, Stanford, Yale, all come close to the top of the world university tables, but those tables are normally based on research and postgraduate study. In terms of undergraduate study, Oxford and Cambridge, they've got it in the bag, basically. That's for UK students. Right, so the next reason why you should choose either Oxford or Cambridge if you're thinking about applying is the most important reason. Cambridge can be as great as it is, and you might love Oxford as much as whatever, but if they don't do the course you want to do, they are not the university for you. So many people come to me, I really want to go to Cambridge, but they don't do the course I want to study. And you don't want to go to Cambridge then. Simple as. You want to go to another university where they do that. Or someone came to me just before I left Thailand and said, I want to go to Cambridge to do chemistry, even though the course at Bristol is more suitable because they do a third year in Heidelberg, and I really want to go to Germany, and they were talking about the Bristol course as if they were really excited. I was like, well, don't apply to Cambridge. Go to Bristol. Because at the end of the day, if you get a 2-2 at Cambridge, you are going to find it more difficult to get a job than if you get a 2-1 or a first at any other good university in the UK. And you are more likely to get a first or a 2-1 if you're doing a subject you enjoy. So pick a subject you enjoy. Pick a subject, look at the courses, see what excites you. And if the courses at Cambridge don't excite you, or the Oxford courses don't excite you, then pick a university where the course does excite you. Because it's 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6 years of your life. And you want to enjoy it. Life's too short to spend 5 or 6 years really doing something that you're not passionate about. Especially at Oxford and Cambridge, where the workload is so intense. It's not like you can, you know, shy away from your work. It's not like you can do a subject you don't like and put your efforts into anything else. If you do law at Cambridge, you'll be doing a lot of law. So pick the course first. And the course is where you have to start. Without knowing what course you want to do, your application cannot you can't set the ball rolling on your application. If you want to apply to Oxford and Cambridge or any other universities in the UK, you have to apply via UCAS. UCAS.com. It's an online application, and the deadlines for example, for 2012 entry are 15th of October 2011 if you're applying to Cambridge, Oxford, or any medical courses including veterinary medicine and dentistry. For all of the courses and all of the universities, the deadline is 15th of January 2012. The deadline is earlier for this group just because the application process is a bit more intense and they need more time. If you are not applying for 2012 but 2013, these deadlines stay pretty rigid. So if you're applying for 2013 entry, the deadline will be 15th of October 2012 and 15th of January 2013. They stay pretty much the same. The thing about your application is that your UCAS application includes personal information, your grades from state exams, a personal statement, which is an opportunity for you to sell yourself basically, and a teacher's reference. This application goes to all of your universities that you apply to. You get 5 choices, so you can apply for up to 5 courses. Only one of those can be Oxford or Cambridge. You can't apply to both. So you have to decide either Oxford or Cambridge if you are going to decide one at all. The reason for this is if people could apply to both Oxford and Cambridge, they would apply to both Oxford and Cambridge, which would mean that applications to both universities would double. We'd have to interview twice as many people, and it just would not be sustainable. And 4 of your choices can be for medicine, or dentistry, or veterinary medicine. So what happens for any medics out there, what normally happens is that people put down 4 medical schools as their choice, and then as a 5th option, they choose something like biomedicine, or psychology, or natural sciences, something as a backup in case they don't get into medical school. The information that goes to all 5 courses is exactly the same, which means that you have to really apply to 5 courses that are kind of cohesive. Because if you apply, for example, to engineering at 2 universities, physics at 2 universities, and French at a 5th university, how on earth are you going to write a personal statement selling yourself as a French student, stroke physicist, stroke engineer? There has to be some sort of cohesion, which means, again, before you start the application and you start choosing your courses, you really have to narrow it down and make decisions at the beginning. There's no point saying, well, I can't decide between maths and English literature, so I'll apply for 3 English literature courses and 2 maths courses. That's going to make writing a personal statement hell. So try and keep cohesive choices. So, Oxford and Cambridge specifically, don't worry, I'm going to go into the personal statement and grades and stuff like that in more detail after. I'm just giving a quick overview. So, Oxbridge application timeline. So, like I said before, 15th of October, the year before time of entry, is the deadline. So that's when we want, well, not when we want it, when we have to have it. We don't generally accept later applications unless there's a good reason for it. So get it in on time, basically. Cambridge have an additional supplementary questionnaire. What happens is you submit your UCAS application online, you get an email back if you've applied to Cambridge where they give you a link to the supplementary questionnaire, something else to fill in, and the deadline for that is the 22nd of October, a week after. You get 7 days extra. That supplementary questionnaire is basically to get your AS module scores if you are doing AS levels, or have done AS levels. If you're doing IB, don't worry, it's not going to be held against you or anything, but if you are doing AS, if you've done ASs by the time you're applying, then they will ask for your module scores. Which basically means instead of seeing, like other universities will, for A's, for example, we'll see biology, module 1, 92 out of 100, module 2, 90 out of 100, etc. So we really see that much detail at Cambridge, and we use that information a lot. Other things on the supplementary questionnaire, very straightforward. There's some questions about, what are the sizes of your classes, for example. It's just all information that we can use to paint a bigger picture. If there's 60 people in your class, it might count for maybe a lower AS result in a certain subject. So it's all stuff that we like to know so we can make more informed decisions. The one thing on the supplementary questionnaire that sometimes stresses people out is that they ask if there's anything else you'd like to add. And people are like, oh, need to impress them, whatever. If you've got nothing further to say, if you've said it all in your personal statement, you don't have to fill that box. An example of when you might want to fill that box is if you're applying for politics, psychology and sociology, for example, at Cambridge, as PPS, where the only university who offers that course. So what we expect is maybe a personal statement just talking about maybe politics. Because we understand that although you're applying to PPS, you might be applying to politics at your 4 other universities, which is understandable, or psychology or sociology. And you might want to use that extra box in the supplementary questionnaire just to say, a little bit about the other elements that you haven't talked about in your personal statement. Cool. Early November, Oxford sets admissions tests. These are tests that are done in schools. Oxford sets a lot more admission tests, pretty much to everyone, in fact. That applies much more than Cambridge. The reason for this is that we've got the AS module scores, and we use those. Oxford decides to use admissions tests. Could be a factor of why which university you apply to. Just have a look at the admissions tests at Oxford. Do you think they suit you a bit better, or are your AS results absolutely stellar that you kind of want to show off and show the university what you've got? Those admission tests are set in school. So they'll be set in exam conditions in school. During November, anyone who wants to apply for medicine at Cambridge and Oxford are required to do the BMAT. And that's when we'll get results from the DMAT. Late November, early December, interviews. And if Cambridge does want admissions tests, that's when we'll do them during the interview. So you might have an interview in the morning and an admissions test in the afternoon. All of this will be made clear to you weeks before you have your interview, and there'll be practice tests online, so nothing to worry about. Late December, Oxford decisions are made, and Cambridge takes a bit longer, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We make decisions in early January, but in Cambridge it's a bit different. After we've interviewed, we can make three decisions basically. If you apply to a college, you're interviewed by that college. And the college might say after interview, right, 1, sorry, we don't think your application is strong enough this year, we're going to have to reject you. 2, congratulations, we want you. Or 3, we think you're good, we think you could show a lot of potential, but either we're not sure, or we just don't have space at this college. In this case, we put you into the pool. Talked about the pool earlier. The pool is basically, it's a huge hall in that they choose a hall in one of the colleges in Cambridge where everyone who's been pooled, all their files go there. Then all the colleges go, all the admissions tutors, and look through any other, all the other applicants if they've got places to fill. This is fair because, for example, say Churchill gets a lot of engineering applicants. We're very popular for engineers. And we might say get 130 applicants for 20 places. At Murray Edwards, they might get, like a neighbouring college, they might get, 10 applicants for 10 places. So what happens is, to rule out, people finding colleges where they think it's easier to get in, at Churchill we'll take the ones that we want, and the other ones that we think would have done really well but we don't have places for, go to the pool. Murray Edwards then goes to the pool to fill up their places if they don't have enough good applicants themselves. This means don't pick a college because you think it's easier to get into. Or don't pick a college because you think it's hard to get into. Say you're an engineer and you really want to go to Churchill, well, go for it. If you're good enough, you will get a place. If you're squeezed out by the competition, we'll just put you in the pool, and if you're good enough, you'll get a place somewhere else. On the other hand, don't just apply to Murray Edwards because you think it's easier to get in. Boys don't apply to Murray Edwards anyway because it's an all-girls college, you won't get far. But say you apply to Murray Edwards because it's easy to get in, they are not obliged in any way to take you just because you applied to them. If you're not good enough, they'll be brutal and go to the pool and get someone better. So pick a college according to where you want to live. Oxford does it a bit different, whereas at Cambridge you'll have an interview at one college and then the pooling happens in January. At Oxford what they do is they have, when you go for an interview, it's over 2 or 3 days. You'll have interviews at various colleges and the communication between colleges happens there and then. It's a different system, but it does effectively the same thing. And then by late January, all decisions have been made. Right, so that's the admissions process. But what are we looking for? We're looking for, Oxford and Cambridge are looking for people who, are strong academically, have a strong academic record. People who show an interest in their subject. If, all your favourite books, if you want to study English literature and all of your favourite books are on the English literature syllabus, alarms start to go. Do you do any reading outside of your classroom? Do you do further exploration when you're not at school? Because that's the kind of people we're looking for, because we know that people who are genuinely interested in their subject are more likely to go to the lectures, are more likely to do well, are more likely to have fun and get a better grade. The dropout rate at UK universities is startlingly high. I can't say that word. Well, English fail. But yeah, it's really high. It's about 15%, which means that 15% of students who get a place at university drop out. Why? Because they choose the wrong subject, or because the university lets people through who are not right for the subject. At Cambridge and Oxford, the dropout rate is less than 1%, because we take that extra effort to pick the students who we know will do well, and these are the people who love their subject. People who've got an enthusiasm for complex and challenging ideas, who are eager to learn more and more and to challenge themselves. And again, just to emphasise, another time, suitability to the course, not the place. So what specifically are we looking for? Strong exam results. The best indication of how someone will do at university is how they've done in the past. We have a very statistic-run admissions process at Oxford and Cambridge, especially at Cambridge, because we've got those module scores. We use those module scores. And the best way of improving your application is to get the best grades you can. People who are in year 12 at the moment, that means really just doing as well as you can at AS. Those who are in year 11 or year 10, GCSEs, if you're doing them, they're not the most important factor. But if there's a marginal case, we can decide between 2 students and someone's got 10 A stars and someone's got 3 A stars. It's things like that could swing it in someone's favour or not. So do as well as you can at GCSEs. That said, if you haven't got all A stars or all A's and A stars, that's not to say that you shouldn't bother applying. Because we do look more at AS modules. If your GCSEs aren't that good, then just show us stellar AS module scores. And we're looking for, it doesn't have to be AS or A levels, it can be equivalent. So we look at IB, the American system. We don't consider the Thai system good enough preparation, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, but it's not happening. So, but that's not to say we just look at A levels. IBs are just as good, and we ask for about 40 to 42 points with 776 at a higher level. That 776 for IB students is important. There's a strong correlation between students who get 776 at a higher level and who do well at Cambridge, and people who do get 766 at a higher level who don't do as well at Cambridge, no matter what points they get. So even if they get 42 points but 766, there's a correlate. There's there's statistics to show they don't do as well at uni. So that 776 is vital. At Cambridge and Oxford, A levels typical offer is an A star and 2 A's. If you do 4 A levels, so if you carry on 4 ASs onto the full A2, we could make an offer on 4. Some people think this is mean, but the thinking behind it is, if you say you declare that you're carrying on 4, that might impress us. That might look good. It shows that you can handle a workload, and that could, that could be in your favour and might be one of the reasons why we give you a place or make you an offer. If as soon as you get that offer you drop one of those subjects, then that offer has been made on sort of false, it's kind of like false advertising. So we make an offer on the 4th A level. It might be a B, it might not be an A, but we will make an offer, or we very well might do. And the results are within the context of the education. So we see what schools you've been to, if there's been any disturbances to your education for whatever reason, whether it be death in the family, illness, something like that. Of course that's something that we want to take into account, because we don't want to turn good candidates away because of bad luck, basically. For those who are doing GCSEs at the moment, this is really important, and picking the right subject at AS, for AS as an A2, can one rule you out of doing certain subjects. If you pick the wrong subjects, you might not be able to do the subjects you want to do. Economists, that means doing maths at AS level. If you want to do economics, not just at Oxford and Cambridge, but other good universities in the UK, you need maths. And I would personally recommend further maths. But also, even when when certain subjects aren't required, admissions tutors like to see certain subjects more than others, because certain subjects will provide a better preparation for university courses than others. We don't have a view that certain subjects are soft or weak or not hard. It's just that they don't prepare you for the course that you're wanting to do better than maybe others. So picking A-level subjects is really difficult. It's not an easy task. I hated it myself. And there's no quick rules about how to do it. You've got to take 3 things into account. Subjects that you like, subjects that you're good at, and subjects that admissions tutors want to see. If all of those are the same, fantastic. But sometimes the subjects that you're good at aren't the ones you enjoy. Sometimes the subjects that the admissions tutors want to see are not the ones you're good at, for example. So it's about getting a mix. Oxford and Cambridge, well, Cambridge have released data about which subjects can help an application. It's called Subject Matters. You can type it into Google, Cambridge University Subject Matters. The Russell Group universities also have got Informed Choices, which is their version of it. It's also very good. It's a good indication. And what you see here is that if you're going for the humanities side, so anything essay-based, languages, English literature, history, geography, economics, geography, etc. Having one or two of these 4 subjects will never do you any harm. I get a lot of people saying, I want to do English literature, but I've got maths A-level. I'm like, great. And an admissions tutor will love to see that. Maths is good for everything. They like to see maths. That's not to say you have to do maths, but don't not choose it because you don't think it's useful for your particular subject, because it is. There's the light green and good choices that are likely to be useful, so that's the sciences, geography. Religious studies is a good subject, especially if you're doing anything like literature, obviously theology, philosophy, even history, literature, anything like that. It's a good subject. A lot of people rule that out as not being useful at all, where as far as Cambridge is concerned, it's absolutely fine. Then the blue courses, they're not bad, they're just less relevant to the majority of courses. But they will be relevant to some courses. So for example, if you want to do politics, psychology and sociology, then yes, psychology, sociology, government and politics will all be useful. Archaeology is extremely useful if you want to do archaeology and anthropology. But what you want to get away from, and doing one of these as a 4th A-level is fine, but what you don't want to do is pick 4 subjects from this blue, because then you're limiting yourself. Maybe pick 2, 1, 1, or 1, 2, 1, you know, something like that. Get a mix in there if you want, because it is about getting a balance between, there's no point doing these 4 subjects if you're going to get a D in maths because you hate maths. In which case, you know, swap maths for English language or whatever you want to do. So that's the art side. The science side, basically, the more science you do, the better. Especially at Cambridge. At Cambridge, all of our science subjects are very broad. We don't do chemistry, physics and biology at Cambridge, we do natural sciences. And natural sciences, basically you choose options from all sorts of, you know, from different disciplines. You can focus on maybe physics or chemistry, but ultimately you will be doing other things alongside that. If you don't want to do other things, then go to Oxford and do the physics course, or the chemistry course, or the biology course, or the material science course. The natural sciences course at Cambridge is for those who, you know, enjoy science as a broad subject and don't want to limit themselves at this stage. What this means is that you need a lot of science to do it. And what I'd always say is that if you want to do a science subject, 3 sciences, 3 relevant sciences is the best way to go. That's linking them up in good combinations. So if you want to do chemistry, chemistry, biology, maths. If you want to do physics, physics, maths, further maths. Engineering, computer science, physics, maths, further maths. Biology, you've got more freedom with biology, but you need chemistry to do biology, bizarrely enough. Chemistry, maths, biology would be a good choice. One thing that I hear a lot is parents and teachers saying, keep your options open, keep your options open. One teacher frustrated me so much because I was telling the kid, right, basically if you want to keep your options open, the best way to do it is picking 3 sciences and 1 arts. If you can't decide between the maths and the science and the humanities side, by doing 3 sciences and 1 art side subject, you can do science, but you can also do arts. Whereas if you do, for example, 2 humanities subjects and 2 science subjects, yeah, you can do a lot of the humanities courses, but you're really narrowing yourself when it comes to the science courses. And sciences are always good. Like we saw before, you know, sciences there are often likely to be useful. One of my friends just got a first at English literature from Churchill College. He did 3 sciences and English literature and went on to do English literature. I think the thing he did was he wanted to be a doctor, or thought he wanted to be a doctor, kept on English as a 4th subject because he loved it, decided actually he loved it more than anything else, went on to do it at university, did really well. So for those doing GCSEs at the moment, that's really, it's useful to look at the courses that you might want to do in the future now, because just so that if you want to do economics, if economics is your passion, you make sure you're doing maths, and with that, the statistics side of maths, for example. Right, so personal statements. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. The personal statement is part of the UCAS application, where you get the opportunity to really sell yourselves. And you are selling yourself for a course at university. You should never forget that. If you're wanting to do maths at Cambridge, your personal statement is there basically to say why you'd be a good mathematician, why Cambridge would be glad to have you on their course, their maths course. The personal statement has 2 functions. It confirms the appropriateness of the subject choice. So it tells us, yeah, that you're appropriate for geography and geography is the right subject for you. And it's also an embarkation point for discussion at interview. So at interview, if you put it in your personal statement, we consider it fair game. We can talk about it. Which means you have to make your personal statements personal and honest. Talk about yourself. Don't talk about what you think Cambridge wants to hear. Do you know, talk about your interests. Do you know, what opinions you have on that subject. What has driven you, what has put you on the path to do engineering or languages or whatever. Also, don't lie, because we'll find out. If you say that you love English literature and you've read everything that Thomas Hardy's ever written, great. At an interview, what do you think about the role of women in Tess of the D'Urbervilles? Who? I didn't read that book, and now I have to talk about it. The interview will be quite embarrassing. The interview will probably just roll over that and go into the next thing to make you feel less embarrassed. But at the end of the day, they'll think, right, so they told us they were interested in English literature, but really they don't have anything to back it up because their personal statement was fake. So that means if you don't exaggerate on your personal statement, and if you said you've read it, make sure you have read it. What a lot of people do, I think, is it's not that they're lying, it's that they haven't done enough extracurricular reading, so what they'll do is, right, I've read Tess of the D'Urbervilles, with the intention of reading Tess of the D'Urbervilles before the interview. But let's face it, if during the summer holidays you haven't had the opportunity to do it, you haven't had the time, then what are the chances of you doing that between then and the interview when you've got your other schoolwork to do? So make sure you've read it. So, personal statement. That being said, it should be subject focused. So we say about 75% or 80% of your personal statement should be talking about your subject. Other universities like to see extracurricular activities. If you're head of the football team, you're head boy or girl, you play grade 8 violin, great, you're obviously very talented. Cambridge doesn't really care. And the reason for this is, if you want to do maths at Cambridge, you just got to show us that you're good at maths. But other universities are different. They want to see, extracurricular activities, a more well-rounded student. And we understand at Cambridge and Oxford that, you will be applying to other universities, so having 20% or 25% allocated to extracurricular activities is absolutely fine. I was at a UCAS conference and I got talking to a representative from Exeter University. Exeter University does look at extracurricular activities, but they also say that about 75%, 80% of your personal statement should be subject focused. So, how do you write a personal statement? Right, so this is just I think this is a good set out for a personal statement. The first paragraph, you've got 4,000 characters, by the way. So, not that much. It turns out to be about maybe 400 words, maybe more than that. Yeah. So not too much. It's about a side of A4, basically. And the first paragraph, I always think, why? Why do you want to do this subject? Your personal statement might start something like, I want to study engineering at university level because, fair play. So why? What interests you about the subject? What do you find is useful about the subject? What has set you on the path to doing this subject? Maybe it's because, you want to be an engineer because you've liked maths and physics since you were, since you started doing them at GCSE. And that interest has never waned. Maybe you want to do languages because, you love reading literature in all kinds of different, from all different backgrounds, from all different countries. There's all sorts. So, what interests you? And what is your background? Kind of what set you onto the second and third paragraph, so the bulk of your personal statement is, I say, back it up. You say you're interested in it. You say that you love it because of this, this, and this reason. Well, to say it isn't enough. Show us. But say you're doing medicine. You're interested in this. I'm good at chemistry, biology. Well, to be fair, most of the people who are applying for chemistry are for medicine are going to be good at chemistry and biology. So, you need to show us that your interest is real. So back it up with evidence. How do you do that? Well, there's 3 ways you can do it. Wider reading. Double exclamation mark, important. This is important because, say there's 100 people going for those 20 places. If you want to do medicine, there's 100 people applying, there's 20 places. About 95% of those people will have good grades. All of them will be doing chemistry, biology, and another science. So how do you get from being one of those 95 to those 20? You read around your subject. You go beyond the classroom. And the reality is, not everyone's going to do that. That's why most people fall down. So already you're going to get your head above the crowd. You're going to stand out more. What we don't want to see is a reading list. I read this, 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 and this. It's about maybe picking out a couple of things that you've read and going into depth, having opinions about them, showing that you've really thought about it. It's wider reading and wider thinking. What have you got from reading those texts that you've read? How has it made you, a better candidate? So, for the scientists out there, it's easy for literature students, obviously, but there's no excuse for science students either. New Scientist is a fantastic online resource. The BBC website has got, a science technology section, a health section for the medics out there. New Scientist has got a health section. When I was applying to university, I got told so much rubbish. But one of the things that I got told, one of the myths about Oxford and Cambridge is that you need to read everything. You need to know about everything that's going on. Get a newspaper, read it every day. So that's, right, okay. So I started watching Newsnight, I started reading the Times, the Telegraph, and, picking out articles about legalised gambling because, they could ask me about this at interview. This is what they're wanting to see. Rubbish. They're not wanting to see that at all. Some people, I've been to schools and the teachers go, you have to read the Times, and I think that's really pompous. I think you don't. If you don't like the Times, then don't read the Times. If you are content with reading, Thomas Hardy from morning till night, then do that if you're an English literature student. That said, if you're an economist, for example, so I did languages. I think my worst subject by far is the economics. I just don't have a clue. Over my head, don't know. Yet, I know that something's going on in Greece right now. Portugal, Iceland, Ireland. The economy's going, AWOL. Germany and France are constantly in talks because of the Euro zone and the economical crisis there. And obviously there's been a recession for however long in Europe. If I know that, as a linguist who knows nothing about economics, if you want to study economics, then you should know a lot more than me. If you want to study economics and you tell us, I'm really interested in economics, and there's economics on the front of the newspaper every single day, then I think it's not, harsh of us to expect you to pick up that newspaper and, start reading it. Same if there's an outbreak of swine flu or bird flu or there's an epidemic here or there, you want to do medicine. Or, certain thing for, there was foot and mouth ages ago for vet meds. So stuff like that, if there's something really big in the news concerning your interest, what you say you're really interested about, then do read it. There was a case of a physics interview, and the candidate talked only about astrophysics in his personal statement, which is absolutely fine. He showed that he's really interested in one aspect of physics, that's why he wants to come to university. When asked about a very recent space shuttle launch, he hadn't got a clue. And then it's like, well, how deep does that interest actually go? So wider reading doesn't mean you have to read everything, but if there's something big going on within your subject, then yeah, that could be interesting. Especially not only for personal statement, but for interview. Second way you can back it up is work experience. Work experience is not relevant for all subjects. And pretty much everyone is like, right, I need to find work experience. I'm going to do history, I have to find work experience. Well, there's very little work experience out there for historians. And that's why we don't look for it. In that case, instead of looking for work experience and finding a museum where you can sell pencil sharpeners for 4 hours every Saturday, read a book. But there are some courses at Oxford and Cambridge that have a vocational slant to them and a vocational element to them, and we want to see some sort of vocational dedication, namely medicine, veterinary medicine, engineering, and architecture. For everything else, you know, don't worry too much. A lot of people go to banks because they want to do economics, but you're not going to get any, you know, learn anything about the economics that you're going to learn at Oxford or Cambridge working in a bank. Or definitely not working behind the counter at HSBC or something. So do work experience because, you know, you want to do it because you're interested in that, you know, as a profession afterwards, and you want to do it for personal development. And maybe mention it in a sentence, but don't make it the bulk of your personal statement if it's really not that relevant. In that case, I'd just say read more. And the third thing you can do is sort of related extracurricular activities. So what this means is you're part of a maths club, for example, if you want to do maths. I did a school trip to France, to Germany, sorry, doing work experience. I wouldn't mention it in the work experience because I worked in the dog kennels and shoveled poo all day. But I spoke German, so it was handy in that way, so I put that in there. Yeah, I learnt about outside of the dog kennels, I learnt about German culture. Other things, you know, if you're an engineer and you like putting things together, or more often than not dismantling things and never putting them together again, or if you're an architect and you sketch a lot, even if you're an engineer and you sketch a lot, you know, depending on what you sketch, you know, what you focus on, it could be relevant. So anything like that you can do there as well. And it's important, you know, again with the work experience, that like the wider reading, it's not just, I don't want to see a long list of what you've done, it's about what you've got from it. What we don't want to see is, yeah, I want to study veterinary medicine, I did a work experience lambing. It's great, I was outside all day, daffodils, fresh air, cute lambs, elbow deep in farm animal, great. No, what skills did you learn? Do you know what science did you learn, if you learned any? Do you know why did you do work experience? To learn something from it, to make you, you know, even if it is just to give you an insight into, you know, what a veterinarian does. So don't just list, I did work experience here, 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 and I did this, this and this. It's about what you learned from it. Do you know what skills you learned? What skills you learned that can then be taken with you to your degree. And then the last one is extracurricular activities. This is where you talk about the rugby, the golf, the piano playing or anything like that you do. And if you can relate it back to why you'd be a better applicant, do so. You know, did you develop communication skills, leadership skills? Are you a better team player now? And you know, if you paint a picture of yourself as a busy individual, you know, someone who stays active, someone who does a lot, even if it is stuff like just having a part-time job or anything like that, if you're a busy person but you still get stellar grades, what does this show? That you're organised, that you can manage your time. And are these skills that Oxford and Cambridge look for? Yeah, definitely. So that's all, yeah, very useful. One thing I want to add to that is that a lot of universities say that your personal statement needs to pop out of the page, it needs to be really interesting, it needs to stand out. And a lot of people get that confused and make up weird stories or put in jokes or you know, I wanted to be, you know, when I was 6 I saw a blackbird with a broken wing cross my path, and ever since it's been my destiny. I've known it's my destiny to study vet. Okay. One at Cardiff, when this really happened, someone who applied to Cardiff said, I want to be a marine biologist because in a past life, already alarm bells going, I was a mermaid. And then it's just like, yeah, so much wrong with that. Past lives, mermaids. If mermaids did exist, would they be good at marine biology? It's not enough to live in the sea. I mean, yeah. All sorts of weird questions that hopefully a psychologist is maybe discussing with her now. But yeah. So avoid anything kind of, don't try and be witty and avoid cliche. I always say sometimes it works. I think it's best to avoid quotes. You know, the favourite introduction of all students is to start with a quote, comma, whoever said it, and it's just like, those aren't your words. You know, if you discuss that in depth and, you know, you can relate it to what you're trying to say, then yeah, but if it's just there to, often they're very empty, it doesn't mean a lot, and it's not your words, so it's just wasted space. You don't want to waste space. You've got, you know, other things to fill that space with that are much more important. So be very concise, be very straightforward, and be personal and honest, because the best way to stand out on the page is to, you know, discuss your real interests, to have opinions, because that's how you are individual. No one's going to have the same interests as you, no one's going to have read exactly the same things as you, no one's going to have the same opinions as you. That's how you become individual, that's how you stand out from the page, that's how someone will remember you. Because bearing in mind that people who are reading these subjects are looking for English literature students or mathematicians. And if you say something about how you really loved, you know, American literature from the Civil War period, you know, when discussing you later, and this happens when you're talking about they see, you know, hundreds of Thomases and Daniels and Sophies and Chloes and stuff like that. So they start going, yeah, can you get me the file of the girl who really liked Civil War literature? And I'll be like, oh yeah, I know that one, right, get it. Because that's what makes you stand out, and it's true. That girl who talked about Civil War literature got in to Churchill. Right, any questions about the personal statement? There'll be time for questions after. Cool. So going to interviews now. Not everyone gets interviewed, but the vast majority do. And again, if you consider how competitive Oxford and Cambridge are, and how you know, how high the calibre of applicant is, if you get an interview, you're already doing really well. The interviews differ depending on subject and college. But you normally will have 1 or 2 interviews at one college, which means that Oxford you might have 1 or 2, you might have 4 interviews because you've got 1 or 2 interviews at several colleges. And they can differ in length. They're normally between 20 to 40 minutes long. At one college, a physics interview might be 40 minutes long. At another college, they might have 2 25-minute physics interviews. It just depends. But the important thing is that they're academic focused. They're going to go in there, they're not going to ask you about how your holidays went, or you know, what your hobbies are. They're going to be like, right, Mr. Mathematician, come in, have you had a nice trip down, take a seat, here's a graph, let's do some maths, literally. Sometimes there'll be prompt work, so you might be asked 20, 30 minutes before an interview to read something, or to look at these questions, and then they will be discussed in interview. So it's subject focused. How do you then prepare for interview? Know your subject. It's the best way. Revise your IB or AS A2 syllabuses. Because you're going to need it. What they don't want to hear is things like, yeah, I've done that, but I didn't do it. I did it at the start of year 12, so I've kind of forgotten. Which a lot of people actually say. It doesn't go down that well, so try and avoid it if you can. So revise. Treat it like an oral exam. It's the best. And the other way to do, and there's no hidden agenda. They're not going to trick you or surprise you or try and throw you off guard. That's not why they're there. They're actually going to be really nice people. You'll be sat around a coffee table, maybe on a sofa, and working through some questions together. It's actually very reflective of the supervision stroke tutorial system. Apart from it's swapped, instead of one teacher for 2 students, it'll be 1 student, 2 teachers. I heard a load of things when going to my interview. Again, complete rubbish, but I believe them. Some interviews in the past, they've thrown a rugby ball at the candidate. If the candidate can throw it back well enough, they're in. No. You cannot rely on any ball throwing skills to get through an interview at Cambridge, I'm afraid. Another interview, an interviewer was sat there with his newspaper, and the candidate walked in and he just looked over his newspaper and said, "Entertain me," lifted his newspaper back up. The candidate then set fire to his newspaper. Yeah, great, you're in. No. Set fire to things in your interview, it won't go down well. General rule, avoid arson. That's not going to happen. And also, if they ask you a question, it is going to be... They're not going to ask you stupid questions. So, for example, one person went in and had a complete meltdown because they asked him to take a seat and there was 2 chairs. And he was like, right, the test has already begun. My fate depends on which chair I choose. And they were just like, this isn't fair. And all the time the interviewers are like, just pick a chair, just sit down, what's up with this person? It's fine, just go in. They're not looking for people who dress a certain way, who speak a certain way, who talk a certain way, who present themselves in a certain way. They're looking for how you think. So, bear that in mind. When I said something before, I said they're not going to ask you bizarre questions. They might, or they might seem bizarre, but always remember why you're there. If you're in a biology interview and they ask you something, you've got to think, right, why are they asking me this? This must be related to biology that I know, that I've been taught. Because they're not going to ask you just simple questions that you can regurgitate answers from your AS modules from. They're going to ask weird questions, new questions, because what they want to see is how you use existing knowledge and apply it in different ways. It's that thought process. So, in one biology interview, one interviewer used to like to ask this question: do snails think? Now some candidates were going, this guy's high, what is he on about? Of course snails don't think, what sort of stupid question is that? But the other good candidates were like, right, this is a biology question, right? What's thinking? What's thinking in humans? What do we have that enables us to think? I'm not a scientist, so don't ask me. But it's got something, I presume, to do with the nervous system. Does the nervous system, what is the nervous system like in snails? Is it comparable? Can we draw conclusions, therefore, that snails can or cannot think? It's that logic, those logical steps that you take. And you might not have a clue what the nervous system like a snail is. So ask them, as long as you're going down that thought process and you go, right, if a snail has got a similar nervous system, then yeah, they can think, but I'm not sure what the nervous system, and they'll say, well, in a scale of this, or this happens, and then you can draw conclusions from that and say, well, yes, I agree with the statement, or no, I don't, or half-half. One of the best things to do in an interview is to stay vocal. That's not to say that you have to, deafen them and just talk, constantly have a stream of, speech coming out of your mouth. It just means that when you're thinking about something and you think you're there, talk your way through your thinking process. So, for example, because at some point it will get complicated. They will ask, questions where you need to take a couple of steps before you get to the right answer. And say you need to get to answer D, and you need A, B, and C to get there. You might have A, you might have B, but you don't have C. You don't know what C is, therefore you can't get to D. If you stay quiet and don't say anything, then they're just going to say, right, they don't know. Whereas if you say, right, A and B are needed, that's this and this, already you're showing that you've gone further. You might say, I think you need E. You thought about it, and yeah, actually you might need E. You might be wrong, but they might say, right, that makes sense, even though it's not the right answer. And that's a good thing, it shows your thinking. And what they might do then is say, right, you need C. Have you thought about C? And then you'll go, oh yeah, and then you've got D. They haven't given you the answer, and this is important. If they help you, it's not to say that the interview is going bad. It's just that interviews are tough. And if they prompt you, and you can use that prompt, and you can use the information that they give you to get to the right answer, that shows that you're teachable. It's pretty good. That's what we like to see. And this is the thing about interviews. What they'll do is they'll start off easy, and then they'll get harder and harder and harder and harder, and there's no way you're going to know more maths than the person interviewing you in a maths interview, or more English than the literature fellow sat in front of you. So at some point they are going to beat you, and you're going to find it difficult. And we do that because if we gave everyone 10 questions, and 50% of the people got 9 out of 10 right, well, we can't use that information to really separate candidates. By pushing them to their limits, we've got a better indication of where people are compared to each other. And then we can start using things like prompts to see how they think and how they react to new information. Another thing to do is, if you are asking this question and you start saying how you need X, Y, and Z, and you get there and you go, whoa, wait, I've gone down the wrong path. Say so. Because, when it comes to university life, I know myself, I've gone to do essays and I took completely a different road than I should have done. And I've realised, right, no, this argument's not making sense. And it's so much better that you say, right, I need to go back to the start and rethink it. So don't just be stubborn and keep on going down that track. Admit your fault and go, right, let's take this again. And they'll appreciate that if you have gone down the wrong path. Also, you don't need to be loud. You don't need to have a loud voice. You don't need to be confident going there singing and dancing. You don't have to be a nice person. But, you need to be able to talk. So if you are shy, and if you are, you don't like talking to new people, that's fine. You can just go through the interview in a quiet voice, in a shy way. They're more interested in what you're thinking. You don't have to beam your answers. And people think that being confident will get them through an interview, and it doesn't. It's about knowing the stuff. There was one girl who had a bit of a traumatic interview, just cried her way through it. And the interviewer came out looking a bit it was a tough interview for the interviewer as well, because she had to deal with this crying girl, and she said at the end of it, that was a horrible interview, but we're going to give her a place. And we're like, okay, why? She said, well, when she stopped crying, she said some really interesting things. And she got there, and whereas it was quite stressful for the interviewer to be like, you don't cry. Do you know, when she got to saying some things, you know, she showed promise, she showed potential, and that's what they're looking for. Don't cry through the interview if you can. But if you do, then just make sure that you punctuate the sobs with some really sharp ideas. Cool. Interview, yeah, we've done that. So, that's just going to go on to this last thingy before I stop. And then this is the common pitfalls at application. The majority of applicants who don't get a place at Oxford and Cambridge don't get a place because they're unlucky and have been squeezed out by the competition. But there's some times when we think this candidate, if they've done something different, could have really improved their chances. Candidates who choose the wrong subject, economists who don't have maths, or who don't know a thing about the recession or things like that. They love the economics in their economics class at school, but they don't go beyond that. Economics is really the main, you know, that's the subject where that happens the most. Law. People choosing law because they want to be lawyers. And this comes to another huge question. The best paid lawyer in the UK at the moment did medieval history. You don't have to do law degree to be a lawyer. Fact. I've got friends who've done law who have gone on to be a lawyer, but I've got friends who've done languages, engineering, philosophy, English literature. They've all gone to do law. Because companies in the UK, and this is really important, and no one ever believes me, go on the website, it's all true, I've got facts to back it up. Companies in the UK, including, you know, top law firms, top consultancy firms, finance, marketing, you know, banking companies, they are overwhelmingly more interested in the quality of the degree, not the subject. That's to say, getting a 2-1 or a first at a good university is good enough, you know, to open up so many doors in the employment, in the job market. So lots of people say, I'm going to do law, I want to be a lawyer because there's so many job prospects, even though I'm really passionate about history. And then they kick themselves in the teeth because their best friend who they go through university not liking law, and if you don't like the subject, and you do it at Cambridge, that's a lot of the subject to do. You know, that's a lot of law to do. That's essays every week. That's, you know, 3, 4, 5 law books every week. And they don't enjoy it, they really struggle, have 3 miserable years and get a 2-2. Their friend is doing history, loving it, can't wait to go to the supervisions, skips to the lectures practically, gets a 2-1, and then becomes a lawyer. And it happens. One of my best friends did Spanish and modern Greek, so arguably not the most important languages in the world today, but he did them because he loved them, got a first at Cambridge, and got on an extremely competitive graduate course. The admissions process was extremely competitive, lots of exams, lots of interviews. He got onto it, he's earning a lot of money, he's got a lot of responsibility, it looks great on his CV, and he's working at Brixton Prison and learning to be a prison governor. How does modern Greek or Spanish help with that, apart from when there's the occasional Spanish inmate? It doesn't, but he's got a good degree from a good university, so he's got analytical skills, he's got communication skills, he's developed, you know, all these transferable skills, as well as being hardworking, intelligent, and ambitious, and those are the things that people are looking for. The actual job, I mean, these courses aren't vocational. Law is not a vocational course. It's very much an academic course. It's not practical, it's academic. They're not vocational courses, so none of the courses learn you how to do a job. You learn the job on the job. There are obvious exceptions. If you want to be a doctor, don't do modern Greek. You need to do medicine. If you want to be an engineer, you have to do engineering. And if you want to do be an architect, you have to do architecture. If you want to do, you know, forensic science, you need to do a chemistry degree or something like that. There are exceptions. That said, there's loads of engineers who don't, lots of students who do engineering who don't become engineers and, you know, make it big in the city as well. So pick a course you like. That's the first stage. And medicine and vet, a lot of people decide they want to be a doctor and they hate chemistry. Okay, why do you want to be a doctor if you hate chemistry? Being a doctor means doing a lot of chemistry. So make sure you're playing with your strengths. Sometimes I see so many teachers, and there's one school, and I just want to slap the teacher, because when they'll see the subjects that they've done at A level, and they'll see the grades, and they'll be like, right, you're applying to engineering, you're applying to medicine. Don't tell them what to do, that's their decision. Just because they've got biology, chemistry, and maths doesn't mean they have to be a medic. They could do natural sciences, do biology, they could do law. I want to go back to law as well. I didn't mean that law is a bad subject to do. It's a great subject to do as long as you're interested in it as an academic degree. So yeah, pick the subject that's right for you, and something that you want to do. Inappropriate year 12, 13 subject combinations. This is also relevant for year 12, so we're going into year 13. Do you know, if you're dropping a subject, make sure you're not dropping a subject that's relevant to your course, because then alarm bells go ringing. If you are doing, say, I don't know why anyone would do this, but economics, maths, further maths, and physics, and you want to do economics, don't drop economics. You don't need economics, but if you want to do it at university, why do you not want to carry it? Why do you want to drop it after AS? Same with things like engineering, don't drop further maths. If at any point in your application we have doubts about how much you like maths, or enjoy maths, or are capable of maths, then we're likely to not accept you onto an engineering course, which is essentially a lot of maths. Little or no wider reading or other exploration. I think this is really the one that people don't realise. I think it really can help an application a lot. No revision completed in advance of interview. Rehearsed answers. What this means is that, you know, people say, right, I need to do mock interviews, and lots of them. A mock interview can be useful for mainly one way. It makes you, it builds confidence in talking to people you don't know. So it gets you used to that kind of situation. The content, you don't know what the interviews are going to ask. So then you can't rehearse answers. There's things that you can do if, you know, revise, for example. If you put it on your personal statement, yeah, refresh it in your memory. You know, read Test of the D'Urbervilles. I'm always going on about Test of the D'Urbervilles. But if you put it in your personal statement, read it again. You know, go over the arguments that you, in your mind, that you express in your personal statement, because then, you know, it's a bit more likely like that something like that could come up. But that won't be everything. So keep a very open mind and see when you get asked a question, take it as it is. You know, answer it, think about it, and answer it to the best of your ability. A lot of people try and sway the interview into their direction. And that's a hard thing to do. I think, you know, if they're asking about infectious diseases in a medicine interview, they're asking about infectious diseases. Don't bang on about genetic diseases just because you know them like the back of your hand. You know, stick to the point. And unwillingness to admit perceived weakness or explain thinking in an interview. So if you go down the XYZ route, go, right, okay, that's wrong, go back to ABC. I know that in my interview, I'd be speaking in German. So my interview, just as an example of an interview, I got a text in German before my interview. I had to discuss that in English once I got into the interview, went into some depth about it. It was a literary text. I then had to do grammar exercises, and then I had to speak in German. And I can remember saying some things and maybe using the wrong case when I was speaking, and I noticed it straight away and I corrected myself. That's good. Well, they said it was good, so yeah. So stuff like that is helpful. Right, I've whittled on for ages.